Former President Donald Trump rolled to an easy victory in Iowa. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis held off former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley to come in a distant second. Businessman Vivek Ramaswamy and former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson both ended their campaigns following the caucuses. CBS News campaign reporter Taurean Small is on the ground in Iowa with more on last night's results. Taurean, it's great to have you. What's the mood in Iowa coming out of the caucuses today? Is everybody just chilling?
Certainly not chilling, but there is a deep sigh of relief after what was the biggest lift yesterday, which was just getting through these caucuses without pretty much a hitch. The biggest concern going into these caucuses was the weather. We've seen not only a blizzard, a huge snowstorm throughout the week, but the frigid temperatures is really what shook most state Republican leadership, whether or not that was going to have an impact on turnout. That was certainly a factor, but I think a lot of Republican party leadership was a bit disappointed, not necessarily in the results, but in that turnout. We saw just over 100,000 votes counted so far. To put that into perspective, in 2016, 180,000 votes were cast in that race. So I think a lot of people are doing a postmortem on whether or not this was or can be deemed successful. No real discrepancies or complaints from the campaigns. Again, these Republican Party leaders in the state are just licking their wounds and looking forward to potentially 2028 going off without a hitch as well.
Well, in their own way, both the Nikki Haley and the DeSantis campaigns touted the results as victories. There was so much discussion about who would take that second place. What actually happened when it came time to caucus?
Yeah, so we saw Donald Trump, and this was pretty much in line with polling leading up into the caucuses. Donald Trump had a commanding lead and won overwhelmingly. Over 50% of the vote went to Donald Trump, and it was something that his campaign was telegraphing. Closer to yesterday, though, they kind of scaled back those expectations. I talked to Donald Trump Jr., the former president's son, as he attended a caucus that I attended, and he said he wasn't going to set a number. He said the media is trying to paint the picture in one way and would move the goalpost if they had communicated something beforehand, but they were expecting a victory. That's what we saw there. For second place, it was always going to be a battle between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. Haley enjoyed a surge in polling right ahead of the caucuses, and she finished strong in third place, closely behind Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, though, is still considering this a major victory that he finished second here. That was what his campaign anticipated would happen. Now they're moving on to New Hampshire, where we know Nikki Haley is up in the polls, and she's competing very closely to Donald Trump.
And from there, I mean, there's Nevada, there's South Carolina. Who knows what's going to happen there? But what we know is now there's three. Both Ramaswamy and Hutchinson are out of the race. Was that surprising? How are people reacting to that?
Yeah, unsurprising, especially for the former governor, Asa Hutchinson. His campaign has been running on a shoestring budget. And, I've talked to CBS News, and I have talked to him many times throughout this campaign about what his pathway forward would look like. He said that his expectations for yesterday was pretty low. He said he just wanted to beat expectations of national polls. He performed worse than that. He actually finished behind Ryan Binkley, who is a pastor out here, well-known, self-made businessman, but certainly wasn't the expected outcome that he had anticipated. Vivek Ramaswamy is an interesting character, though. He ran as an alternative to Trump in many ways, said that he is the safe America First candidate in this race. He's been nothing but a staunch supporter of the former president, and he made that case to voters out here. What we saw happen, though, last night is voters aren't looking for a Trump alternative. If they're interested in Trump policies and his rhetoric and how he's ran this campaign, they're going for him and not Vivek Ramaswamy. That's why it was unsurprising that he his run in this race came to an end.
All right, Taurean Small, thank you so much.